Hi, welcome to the Go Higher Frequency Astrology channel. My name is Suzanne. Join me as I investigate how the monthly cycles are progressing with a focus on how we can use this energy more productively. Today, I'm going to be talking about the final Venus-Uranus conjunction at the anaretic degree of Taurus happening on April the 23rd, right before Uranus moves into Gemini on April the 25th. This is the second time Venus and Uranus have met up at this anaretic degree. So we're going to look back at the previous cycle as well as next year's cycle when Venus and Uranus meet up in Gemini for the first time. On the very same day of the conjunction, the Sun, Moon, and Pluto are forming a T-square in the sky. So we'll talk about what we're finally releasing in relationship to the Uranus and Taurus cycle that we've all been experiencing as a collective since 2018. I'll be looking at this through the lens of each rising sign, and I've included timestamps below in the description, so feel free to go look for your rising sign and skip right ahead.
Well, the new moon in Aries certainly brought a blockade, literally, a fragile ceasefire, and then a stalemate amidst a huge buildup of United States military power in the Middle East. Pluto on the midheaven. Unfortunately, the standstill is exasperating the oil shock that will be felt more acutely over the next few months. So there's a lot that is hidden right now, but will be exposed as the months wear on. Uranus transits permanently into Gemini on April the 25th, but the Venus-Uranus cycle is not done in Taurus yet. Uranus is disrupting the United States material direction. Right now, it is conjunct in gate 8, and it's in line 6, and it's about our contribution. And soon it will jump over to gate 20, which will change our direction in the now. And Donald Trump has his Uranus here in gate 45. It's next to his North Node. It's about the material direction of the tribe. So as our president, he is here to disrupt our material direction, even if it's painful to us. Uranus has been transiting the 6th house, the Sibley chart. So it's causing a lot of disruptions in the government and how we run the government, and within our military, and how we serve in other countries, and how we create chaos within other countries, and how we find stability within our government, how we find stability in our defense networks. Venus and Taurus craves beauty and comfort and stability, but Uranus ruptures all of that. And at the anaretic degree, there's an urgency, a sense that something must complete or release. It may feel that our sense of self and values and desires are on the edge of upheaval. And in the 6th house of the Sibley chart, it's about our governmental structures and our use of the military. Now, Venus and Uranus already met up at the anaretic degree once. If you remember, they met up right before the United States solar return last year, and it was in the 6th house of the Sibley chart. But as you can see in the standalone chart, it's right up here in the visible 10th house. If you remember, Trump had this very visible military parade in Washington, D.C., and it wasn't something that previous presidents had done. A lot of critics were comparing this choice of a military parade as something a dictator would do to show his strength, to show his military power to other countries. And this happened right after the US made its initial strike on Iran. The S&P and the Nasdaq recorded record highs as the month began, but quickly became volatile, defined by escalating trade tensions and a surprisingly divided Federal Reserve. Now you can see all of these themes still very present in the United States. Jerome Powell is going to be ending his tenure, and they're going to be voting on a new leader of the Federal Reserve in May. And definitely we're having another shock to trade because of this standstill. We still have tariffs that are very present in our negotiations with other countries. So all of these themes are still very front and center. The 2025 conjunction happened on the 4-6 cross of tension, and it describes so perfectly the narrative that came from the administration during this time. They hoped this provocation, because Gate 39 is all about provocation, that it would inspire an internal uprising within Iran to overthrow their own government. And they were able to stoke an uprising, but eventually that was quelled by Iran. The moon was in Scorpio. It's here in the third house of the standalone chart, but in the Sibley chart, it was in the 11th house. It was in the sixth line of the 50th gate in this body graph, and it describes the ability to maintain one's values and continue to have harmonic relationships with others. It was square to Pluto, and Pluto was in the 41st gate. It's the gate of contraction, but it was in a line about pragmatism and caution. So during that strike, that initial strike, Iran really kept a cool head to try not to escalate this attack into something that went out of control, that caused more harm to everybody involved. And I think the US also showed a lot of restraint during this time, as well as messaging to Israel not to escalate things further. This year's conjunction happens on the 3-5 cross of the unexpected. Now, the third line's keynote is labeled greed, but there is luck to be found on this cross, something of value that happens unexpectedly on the path toward something else. Last year, there was an attempt to provoke an internal uprising in Iran. And this year, you see that there is an experimentation with bribery over threats of annihilation, it looks like. There does seem to be cracks in the leadership in Iran. There seems to be mixed messaging coming out of Iran, just as there is mixed messaging coming out of the United States. But so far, it seems it has instead united the opposition and has given them additional leverage for negotiations. There seems to be a desire to preserve the nature of Iran, to preserve the tribe of Iran internally. On April the 23rd, the same day that Venus will perfect a conjunction with Uranus, transiting Jupiter will perfect a conjunction to Trump's design Saturn and Putin's personality Uranus in gate 53, the gate of beginnings. This is the final time Jupiter transits these planets. It's happened 2 other times, one in direct motion and one in retrograde motion. So this is the final pass. And this is what really brings Putin and Trump together, this Jupiter-Saturn-Uranus dance. So we'll see what happens between both of them as Jupiter transits their planets once again and speeds through the rest of Cancer and into Leo by the end of June. Now, if you remember during my full moon in Libra video, I warned that Trump might do something foolish on Easter Day as Jupiter transited his design Mars in this same gate. Well, he certainly did something foolish with his lovely Easter tweet, threatening to kill an entire civilization. And similar to last year's psychotic tantrums when he was threatening Greenland, he experienced intense pushback about that tweet. Trump's design Mars in Gate 53 wants to barrel through situations, but Saturn restricts him. During the first couple of passes, while Putin made big moves, Trump was forced to slow down and adjust his expectations to be able to act the same way with the same bravado. He was forced to change his approach, to add more structure around what he was trying to accomplish. This year's transit surrounding the Venus-Uranus conjunction completes a grand cross of that previous cycle. The moon is in the 8th house of the Sibley chart. It's in gate 31 in a line labeled arrogance. It's about following one's own principles without waiting for consensus. There's a push-pull energy with Aquarius in the Sibley's 2nd house, now in line 4. It's an externalizing energy with themes about the survival of the fittest. Pluto has been transiting the 2nd house of the Sibley chart for some time, and it is very near the south node of the Sibley chart. It's bringing up a lot of the demons from our past so that we can face our past and how we've handled money in our past. And it's revamping how we earn money or how we wield money for the powerful in our society. And it's really excavating our values as a country. It is really digging up our demons and really helping us to look at our demons so that we can solidify what our values are as a country, so that we can solidify how money has corrupted our system and how we can maybe create a new path forward after this Pluto transit is done, how we invest money into the society for the greatest good of our country, rather than the ways that we're handling money now and the ways that we're investing money now. This push-pull energy is now focused on the sun in the 5th house. And the sun here, like I said, is in line 3, and it's about greed, and it's about how a lot of the people in the United States have been very greedy. A lot of the poor or the middle class have been kind of left out in the cold, basically earning less and working more, and the share of the finances has not been equitable. And so we're looking at that right now. It's an experimental or adaptation line, which is about obsession with having more than one need. So this obsession by the elite to not pay any more taxes. They might not be paying hardly any taxes, or the middle class might be shouldering more tax weight than the people that earn millions of dollars. And how do we look at that as a society to say enough is enough? People can't even afford day-to-day medical care for themselves. They can't afford to eat. Is it really worth you not paying more taxes to actually taking away food from people who are starving. Is that really worth it? So we're looking at that right now. Now, the sun connects to that last year's moon that was in the 50th gate, and it's about responsibility and responsibility to one's community, really. It's about preserving the nature of the tribe, and it's a defensive channel. And it really is about protecting the whole tribe rather than just a limited few. And so the release is in the empty leg of the T square, which is the 11th house in the Sibley chart. That is the legislature, where the moon in Scorpio was last year. We need to empower the legislature to put constraints on how we are approaching war, how we are creating these escalation traps that we're kind of falling into with Israel. And in a much broader sense, one is seeing a lot of insider trading happening in the United States. There's speculative wealth building in the financial markets amidst legislative power grabs and imperial-like behavior toward borrowing, charging, and seizing monetary assets from other countries. We see a pattern of leverage building, finding someone corruptible to go against the consensus, continuously pitting one side against the other. In the US, funds that have not already been siphoned off to the wealthy are being directed toward defense and away from other government programs that benefit the country's people. Meanwhile, increasing evidence suggests we're in an AI bubble that has largely hidden the ramifications of these financial gambles and stressors. How long can you keep this con going until everyone starts to see it and the illusions start to collapse? We are already seeing the cracks in the facade. So will Venus and Uranus meeting for the final time in Taurus be that final crack to this fragile mirage that's keeping everything together, that's holding everything together? Will it keep this fragile coalition in place, or will it just crack it apart? I'm thinking it's going to crack everything apart. We're already seeing that happen somewhat behind the scenes, but we might see that much more publicly now that Venus and Uranus are joining for that final time. Or at least it's going to herald that in.
In a previous video, as I was looking ahead toward this Venus-Uranus conjunction, I speculated about which woman in Trump's administration would get the axe next. My eye was on Tulsi Gabbard at the time, since she was experiencing the last hit of her Uranus opposition during this time. I hadn't even looked at the chart of Lori Chavez de Raymer, but she's also an Aries Sun Mercury with a moon in Leo like Tulsi Gabbard. She also has a Mercury-Saturn signature, so she's experiencing her Saturn return right now. Her Mars is in Taurus, which is activating this T-square between the moon in Leo and Pluto in Aquarius. And not only did she have complaints about her improper behavior with her bodyguard, her husband was caught sexually harassing women in her office. This Mars in Taurus is really not behaving very well. Mars in Taurus is not a great place for Mars to be. So we can see that playing out very publicly. What you can't see in the astrology chart is that her design moon is right on the Venus-Uranus conjunction. And that's why I love human design. It shows me things that I cannot see in the average chart. And you'll notice that she was fired when the moon was separating from Trump's natal Uranus degree and applying to his Sun and North Node degree. Tulsi Gabbard was in the news a couple of days ago, again showing her absolute loyalty to Donald Trump. I still hold out hope that the final hit of her Uranus opposition will reveal something less obvious. I also want to point out that both Melania and Sam Altman's birthday are on the cross of the unexpected, but in different lines than this specific conjunction. And Melania's natal Venus is within orb of this Venus-Uranus conjunction. And you saw an example of the ways this cross works with that surprising announcement of hers. Sam Altman has also been in the news, and he's also had his share of the unexpected with the rollout and controversy around the release of ChatGPT. Whatever happens right now, this tension will likely push the people towards a revolutionary response this summer, as Mars will meet up with Uranus and Gemini, and Pluto will go out of bounds to the south in July. When Venus and Uranus finally meet up in Gemini in June of 2027, the day of the president's birthday, we will be feeling the ramifications of this time period more acutely. And this will likely push us into a more transformative rebirth of our future direction, especially around how we invest our money as a nation, how we earn our money as a nation, and one that shifts the power from the elite, Jupiter in Leo over here, towards the people. Now, this shift will likely be made in tandem with technological advancement and a shift in leadership in all directions. The New Yorker just pushed out an expose about the leadership of Sam Altman over an important technological advancement like AI. And they question his integrity and how somebody who is leading such a game-changing technology needs to be held to a higher standard. They can't be motivated by money per se. That can't be their primary motivation, because the ways that we're handling this technology needs to be for the good of society as a whole. It can't be utilized as an economic weapon. There are so many dangers that have been pointed out about this technology, especially in light of all of the ways that this technology can manipulate, the ways that people can access information. It's like putting out propaganda on steroids. There has been this effort since the Pell referendum to put out propaganda that feeds into our society's frame of mind about politics. It feeds into the ways people filter information. It has weaponized politics. And we can see this playing out in such a bigger way with the launch of AI, pitting one against the other so that we're divided as a nation because of these political interests that are not concerned with the health of our society at all. A lot of the transits that I've been seeing lately is how we're kind of evolving to do a polar shift. We're becoming the other side. We're becoming what we're not, what we think that we're not. And so this is really giving us an opportunity to see that within ourselves, to see how we're having this rebirth of our very values as a country. So the sun now connects with that Scorpio moon, which was in the 50th gate, which creates this channel of preservation. And so right now, it's basically about preserving the tribe. So what tribe are we preserving right now? Are we preserving the survival of the fittest tribe? Do we want to
create a nation that serves the elite, and the rest of us are at the mercy of those elite people who are telling us that we can no longer work for a living because AI is going to take over our jobs and all we can do is beg for money. Is that what we're doing right now? So we're really looking at this from a lot of different perspectives.
So, what does this mean for you? I'm going to be reviewing possible themes for each rising sign, but think back to July 4th, 2025. What themes were you experiencing during that time? Because you'll get a second chance to better understand the urgency you're feeling to shake off old Taurian comforts that have outworn their usefulness in your life so you can move on to something new. I'm going to be looking at each rising sign as an axis, and this will be from the whole house perspective. For example, I'll be taking a look at both Aries and Libra so we can understand the entire cross and what Aries and Libra are liberating themselves from a slightly different perspective. Your chart's placement of these planets could be different depending on the degree and cusp of your rising sign and houses. And I'm going to be showing you how that works by reviewing my own transits as a late degree Libra rising.
So if you're an Aries rising, you've had Uranus transiting your second house of values and how you earn money in many ways, shaking up the ways that you find stability in your earned income sector, in your place of self-esteem and values. And as Pluto has entered Aquarius, you've been taking a look at your dreams and wishes, how you fit into the collective, how you work in groups, and how you work as a leader of groups, and how you might interact in groups. Now, this can be at the workplace, this can be in your peer network, this can be in your friend network. So Pluto has come into your 11th house to excavate this area of your life, to rebirth it into a new expression depending on your specific chart and where you are evolving in this lifetime. The moon in Leo really wants to shine as an individual. How you play, how you express your creativity, it wants to shine in how you interact with your children. And there's this push and pull between what it is that you owe to the collective and how your responsibility is to the collective versus who you are as an individual. And so then the place of stress is impacting your second house. And so you're taking a final look at this transit through your second house, and you can find your release in the 8th house. Perhaps you're having to revamp how you earn money and you need to take risks. Scorpio is about risk taking with shared resources. How do you need to lean into risking vulnerability, to having to reach out to others and ask them for help? Or how can you risk facing karmic contracts that you need to face so that you can move on from a place of integrity? And then if you look at it from the Libra perspective, you're looking at the mirror of this. Libra, from a whole house perspective, has had this Uranus transit happening in their 8th house of shared resources, of karmic contracts, of death. And so it's really shaking up the stability that they feel like they need in other people's resources. And it's really shaking that up so that they can find security within themselves, within their own resources. or shaking up how people see them and how they rely on how other people see them, or rely on these contracts with other people. And Pluto has entered your fifth house. So it's really revamping the place of individual contribution and how they escape into romance or play, or how they raise their children. It's really excavating that house. And the moon in the 11th house, it really wants to play in their networks. It wants to find how they connect to the wider community, and they want to be adored by the wider community for their individual efforts or contribution. So Pluto is coming to transform how they need to feel like an individual in the wider group, how they can shine in the wider group. And their place of release is that second house. So how can I find security in my own earned efforts through how I earn money, how I can empower myself to fulfill my own needs? Now, I wanted to show you how me as a Libra rising can look at both the whole house part of my chart and how I can apply this to the quadrant experience of my chart. Now, I appreciate seeing these transits through multiple lenses. I find that different house systems are basically different windows into the same person. And so I can see both of these themes through different lenses in my own life. You can see the sun is pretty much opposing my Uranus degree in my first house. And what it's really demonstrating to me is looking back at Uranus in Taurus and how we are ending a cycle of Uranus and Taurus. Venus rules Taurus. And so it's here, it's putting an exclamation on this transit and shining a light on my Uranus opposition. So when Uranus entered my seventh house, it went over my descendant. It was still in Aries, but you could see that things were changing in me during this time. I got fired from one of my marketing positions, one of my last full-time positions. I got fired. It was a company where I found a lot of success, but also a lot of failure. They go hand in hand for me in my chart. I have a very mixed chart. So success and failure is just one of the same things for me. So when Uranus came over my descendant, that's what happened. I fell apart in some ways after that experience. I had already started to think that marketing was something I did not want to do anymore. But I made one last effort. I got hired by an Australian company. It was a B2B company, and they were selling AI for state governments. They were selling this concept in 2017. And right after that experience, I got laid off again. And right after that, I found out my dad was sick, and I was going through a lot of internal angst about needing to get out of the city and feeling like I needed a bigger change. And so this Uranus opposition kicked off that big change of me really upending my life and traveling to another part of the country and starting to study astrology during this time. So it really upended a lot of my life and my relationships to others. I thought I was going to get divorced. My husband and I made it through, thank God. And now Uranus has been transiting my eighth house. My south node is in the early degrees of Gemini. So it's coming for my eighth house south node. But when Uranus entered my eighth house, that's when my husband and I got back together. And he has been holding down the fort well, I've been trying to figure out this astrology thing. I've been scared that he is going to be laid off and I'm going to not have had figured out myself by that time. So it's been putting a lot of stress on me. And at the same time, I've been encountering the kinds of stress that I felt at my previous company and feeling a lot of pressure on various relationships to find success in the ways that they've found success. And it's been bringing up a lot of the same issues of me feeling like I needed to prove myself to others and at the same time rejecting that conformity. And so I've been feeling a lot of angst, mental angst toward that, a lot anxiety. My Uranus is going to be squaring my moon. I have moon square the nodes. And so this is really coming back up for me to look at chaos in my mind and in the ways that I depend on others for my security so that I can find more security within myself. You know, there's a part of me that really wants to shine in my career, and this other push and pull within me that needs to be super secure. And I have a hard time taking the risks that are necessary because there's a part of me that needs to find security. And I feel like I'm unmoored when I give up certain controls of being somebody who I'm not. So there's part of me that feels very deeply attached to how I present myself or how I need to go at my own pace so that I can be secure, so that I can have the courage to go out and present things in the ways that I uniquely can present things. And so I'm having this confrontation about myself and my own security and how I can really move in the world as myself without having to put all of this pressure to be somebody that I'm not. And how can I find security and stability in the ways that I need to, but also taking risks and really finding the security in being myself, in just allowing myself the freedom to be myself and not having to conform to other people's projections or other people's needs from me, and allowing people to have their own expectations and allowing them to take ownership of that and not having to worry so much about others and how they perceive me, and really being just comfortable in my own skin and not having to attach myself to these other people and these other people's expectations or how these other people are out there earning their money. Do I have to earn the money the same way that they do? No, it just has to work for me. I, at the end of the day, am the one that needs to feel happy in my own skin. So all of those things I am experiencing, but I can also see how it plays out from a whole house perspective, how I am an individual in groups, how I can remain solid in my own individuality in groups, and how can I find my own security in my individuality in groups. So both themes are playing out in my life. So maybe you can take that example and see how it plays out in your life. For Taurus and Scorpio risings, the Uranus transit has been happening either in the first house or the seventh house. And for Scorpios, they might be experiencing this very similarly to what I just showed you as far as my experience. So really wanting to shine and wanting to be adored in their career, but really needing that safety and security within their root structures. So for Taurus, they've been experiencing this Uranus shakeup in their very identity, in how they perceive themselves and how they show up in the world. And as Pluto has entered a very visible 10th house in their chart, now they're seeing maybe a place of empowerment in the outer world, but Pluto really is here to excavate that 10th house. So it might also be breaking down how they're seen in that very visible way, that place of career, that place of status. So in a way, that first 5 degrees of Pluto moving through their 10th house has been that final shakeup of their identity. They might have been experiencing the shakeup of their identity when Uranus first entered Taurus as it went over their ascendant. They might have experienced an illness that really needed to make them alter how they were showing up in the world and how this might have impacted their career house. And so it really brought home sort of this excavation in how they show up in a very visible place, how people see them both personally, but also in a place of high visibility in the world. That could have been as a parent in their children's life, that could have been as a person who's leading a workforce, that could have been showing up in a variety of ways. But now Venus is coming to connect with Uranus for the very last time before Uranus goes into that Gemini second house to shake up their values and how they earn money, perhaps, as Pluto continues to go through their 10th house of career. There's that push and pull between how they show up at work and how they feel more secure, those hidden places within them. And this place of tension is how they see themselves and how they present themselves to the world. So where Taurus risings might feel release is by empowering others to take responsibility for their own roles in the situation. They do not have to be the place of stability for others. They can empower people to take ownership of their own chaos. Because when we take over for other people, we're doing a disservice to them. They need to experience their own transformations and empowerment. And for Scorpio risings, I sort of went through this in my own chart. You've been experiencing a shakeup in your relationships and how you project yourself into other people, and how this might be robbing you of really experiencing your own security within. How are you looking for safety and stability in your relationships and not empowering yourself to be the person that can provide stability within? Pluto is excavating your place of internal security so that you can become more secure within your root structure. And it is now playing out in how you want to find that place of play and relaxation at work, or in that very visible house of how people see you and how you can shine in your place of career. But first, Pluto is demanding that you take more ownership, how you feel at a very fundamental, deep emotional level. It is going to revamp you from the root structure. And you're feeling that tension right now in your relationships with others. And that place of release is in your first house. How can you empower yourself? How can you empower yourself to take more ownership of how you feel at a very fundamental level, how you feel very different Aquarius rules your fourth house, how you're okay with being different, how you find revolution in being different and slightly off kilter. And even if that is a place of estrangement, how can you find new avenues of feeling as a person who is probably really protective of yourself? How can you find a new sense of security at the deepest level? How can you empower yourself? Scorpio risings are meant to transform throughout their lives, to go through periods of rebirth. They embody death and rebirth. And so they can't always be looking for that stability and security or projecting that stability and security on other people. They need to take ownership in the ways that they need to shake up their relationships so they can go through these periods of transformations and rebirth with others as well, not just within themselves, but with their relationships as well. Gemini risings are ruled by Mercury. And a lot of how Mercury operates is through the subconscious. It's definitely necessary for Uranus to come in and shake up these repetitive patterns in their subconscious. And Uranus will come in through their first house soon. So whatever shakeups that they're feeling right now will prepare them for this upcoming shake of their actual identity. The moon in Leo is emotionally dramatic. They need an audience for their ideas. But, maybe they're stuck. Uranus is really going to shake up their subconscious so they can connect with new ideas, so that they can actually feel rebirth around their ideas and their thought structures. Pluto and Aquarius in the ninth house is pulling toward a total philosophical overhaul. These two are creating that push and pull between this personal narrative and a universal ideology, between what feels true and what is intellectually transformative. This is where all that tension just charges in the 12th house, and that's deeply uncomfortable place for Uranus. And the 12th house is hidden, dissolving, and private. There's an opportunity to shine a light on what needs to be liberated in your subconscious. What is being suppressed about your beliefs, about your voice? What is it that is holding you back? And it's all happening in a house that doesn't broadcast itself outward. So the resolution of this T-square demands that you develop the tension through the sixth house. You need to lean into discernment, lean into transformation through daily practice and deep psychological self-work. And so for Sagittarius rising, it's the mirror opposite. You've had the Uranus transit going through your sixth house. And so Uranus entering Taurus here is really shaking up where we feel stable and secure as far as our daily patterns. And Pluto has just entered the third house. So it really is revamping how we communicate, how we're processing information. There's a push and pull between our higher selves, what we're processing in the world, how we're communicating our higher selves to others. And that place of tension is happening in our sixth house of our daily habits, of our health. Where we find release is through surrendering to the 12th house, by surrendering to not knowing, not processing information so much that we don't have to have all the answers. Surrendering to the fact that God has a higher plan, and surrendering to the fact that we don't need to be processing information every moment of the day, that we need to find moments of relaxation and quiet, where we need to find ways that we can process the information that we're learning in a way that allows for silence and surrender. So for those that are Cancer rising, they've been experiencing the Uranus transit through their 11th house. So it's been really shaking up where you find stability in your peer groups, in your larger networks, in your hopes and aspirations. And Pluto has entered Aquarius in your 8th house. So it's revamping who you reach out to for shared resources, how you are interacting with various karmic contracts that you've had in your life. It is here to rebirth you in a fundamental way. There's a push pull between your earned money versus shared resources and the collective group, and how you're going to ease that tension within this transit is through the 5th house. So empowering yourself to lean into either your own individuality or how you're empowering your children, how you find creativity and joy within groups of people, within shared resources, within what you bring to the table as far as your own resources. And for Capricorn risings, it's the mirror opposite. So you've been experiencing this shakeup within ways that you express your creativity, in ways that you express your individuality, in the ways that your children interact with you. You've been experiencing a shakeup, a disruption in this area of your life. And right now, Pluto has been transiting your 2nd house of earned income, your values. It's revamping your place of values and what you bring to the table as far as your earned income and where you shine. Right now, there's a push-pull between shared resource and your own resources, and you're feeling a tension perhaps with your children or with your own individuality. And now you're here to find release within the collective by empowering your dreams and wishes within a group setting. So now we're going to look at Leo risings and Aquarius risings. The Leos have been feeling this shakeup or this disruption in their most visible house, their 10th house. So what have you been feeling as far as this shakeup? Could also be you've been really disrupted as far as how you express yourself in the outer world, your place of status, your work, and your career. And Pluto has entered your relationship house. And so it might have involved your relationships at work within this very brief time that Pluto has been here. So there's a push-pull dynamic happening between what you want to be in the world versus what Pluto is asking you to do in your relationships, to revamp your relationships, to find the death and rebirth experience through relationships. And you're feeling this point of tension within your 10th house right now. It's putting an exclamation on the disruption that has happened in your 10th house. What final lessons are you learning here? And the message right now is to release that and to empower the deepest security. Scorpio ruling your 4th house means that you're here to create these experiences, rebirthing something from a very fundamental emotional level, wherever your root structure lives. That is an experience for you. And now you're experiencing that through your 10th house, where you find stability, and through your relationships. That is really going to revamp your place of security and empowerment within your root structure. So for Aquarius rising, you are experiencing this from the mirror aspect of a Leo rising. You are experiencing a shakeup from the very roots of your foundation. Uranus has been shaking you up, disrupting how you find stability at home or how you find stability within the deepest parts of you. Uranus has been shaking that up a little bit. And Pluto has just entered your first house, your place of identity. You are experiencing possibly a decimation of that ego so that you can be more empowered, so that you can find that empowerment, that Scorpio empowerment, very visibly in your 10th house. So right now you're feeling this place of stress. In your 4th house, you're feeling that place of tension in your 4th house as Uranus and Venus meet up at that culminating degree. There's a sense of urgency that you feel you need to really confront this place of security within yourself so that you can find a place of rebirthing within your identity. And the place of release really is in your career, or how you empower yourself to go out there, take risks, to go out there and present yourself to the world and to find a sense of stability within the chaos. How can you empower yourself to take more risks in the outer world and shake up this need for stability at home? How can you find a new place of security as you've been shaken up by Uranus, and as Uranus will enter your 5th house of individuality, in a place where you find joy and your place of creativity? So let's look at a Virgo and Pisces for our last set of rising signs. If you're Virgo, then you've been experiencing this shakeup of your beliefs, and how you've been feeling this shakeup, maybe in places where you've been tested in your belief structure, how you've found stability in your belief structure. How has Uranus really shaken that up and has cracked you open in a way? And how has that come through different avenues, whether it's through travel, whether it's through higher learning, whether it is through just how you approach your beliefs and where those came from. Pluto has just entered your 6th house. And so you are feeling this push and pull between the 12th house and your 6th house. So Pluto has come in to excavate the place of daily habits in your workplace and your health. So what has happened since Pluto has entered your 6th house, and how has that impacted your beliefs? And how do you need to find detachment within your habits? And what is that push and pull? What does that look like as far as the hidden places, how that's kind of impacting the more habitual places within you? And where you find release is through the 3rd house. So how do you bring in your empowerment to the places where you are processing and communicating your larger belief structure? You know, how are you bringing it into your everyday life, into your everyday habits? And how are you finding release there? How are you finding empowerment there? And with a Pisces rising, you've been experiencing this from a mirror perspective. So Uranus has been transiting your 3rd house, your siblings, how you communicate, your daily interactions with others. This is your local environment. You find stability in that local environment. You find stability in your communications. How has this Uranus transit been working its way to disrupt that? And Pluto has just entered your 12th house. So you are finding death and rebirth in the hidden places within you. How are you finding that place of union with the unseen while you're feeling this push and pull between the hidden versus your daily habits and your health? And how is that tension coming out within your daily environment, within your communication? And the release that you find really is through your higher self, connecting to your wisdom of higher learning, empowering yourself to take risks with travel where you need to learn something completely foreign to you so that you can actually make changes to how you find stability and how you feel comfort in your ideas, in your everyday kind of stubborn ideation. So how has this changed you for the better, and how it's going to continue to change you as you are going to be experiencing Pluto in your 12th house for some time? So how can you connect to something greater than yourself so that you can empower yourself to reach beyond your limited ways of thinking so that you can really revamp what it is that Uranus has been teaching you about your communication, about the ways that you're kind of stuck, maybe sometimes within how you process information and how you can find a death and rebirth through those foreign places that you explore so that you can integrate those foreign places, those foreign experiences into how you experience or process information, how you teach others, and how you can show others ways that they can reach out to those foreign elements within each of us and expand their ideas in ways that they haven't expanded them before.
Well, I hope that was helpful. And I don't know about you, but I am really looking forward to liberating myself from this Uranus and Taurus transit, which has completely upended my life in both good and bad ways. And I'm really looking forward to the movement of Uranus into Gemini. I'm an Aquarius. I embrace diversity. I love the diversity that this country has inhabited. And I'm hoping that we can return to that forward thinking technology that works for everyone, and we can find some unity again here. And I know that there's a long history of Uranus and Gemini, which has not been easy for the United States. But eventually, I hope we can come back together and unify once again around our differences and around the ways that we are forward thinkers, and embrace that once again as a nation, but also as a world, a wider community, and stop getting so bogged down into the us against them mentality. I can't wait until we figure out a way past that. All right, till next time. See you later.